Hey everyone, Todd Shelnick with CFI Pro Courses, and tonight I've got something kind of special for you. Either I'm going to become your best friend tonight, or you're going to absolutely hate me. I'm going to have to spread some good news and some bad news, and I don't know which one to give first, so I'm just going to start talking. So every year around June, the FAA likes to do some pretty cool things. They like to give updates to some of the publications that they do. And one of the publications they like to update is the Airman Certification Standards. Now, as you well know, preparing for your CFI ride or renewal or reinstatement, that you go off the CFI PTS. However, the problem is, due this 2020 in June, the new ACS is supposed to come out. Now, the good news is that I think with all the postponement that we've had with our government and with the world, with the COVID-19 stuff, I think they may push the release date of the ACS into 2021. However, in order for me to give you the maximum of what you need to be successful, I have to make sure you're thoroughly prepared, and I think I've got you covered. So why wait until the ACS actually comes out when you've got somebody that has a pretty much good working copy already, which is CFI Pro Courses taking care of you? So what we're going to do tonight is I have the rough draft by the FAA's working group who's working to put this new ACS together, and we're going to go over it, not page by page, but I'm going to go over it in some pretty good detail and show you how it works, and that's coming up right now. All right, what you're looking at here is the proposed Airman Certification Standards for flight instructor. Now, I say it's flight instructor, but if you actually look at what it says right here, notice it just says the word instructor. It doesn't say flight instructor. And here's a pretty cool thing about this new ACS. It not only covers flight instructor, it covers ground instructor. And not only does it cover flight instructor and ground instructor, it covers every flight instructor. Flight instructor instrument, flight instructor rotorcraft, glider, the whole spiel. It covers everything. So it's a one complete document to satisfy every single person. And it is a lot less information than we're normally used to seeing in the PTS. And the reason why is because if the FAA continues to do exactly what they're doing, I'm going to tell you, it's 100%. It'll blow you out of the water about how easy this is going to be for you. Especially for those of you who have come through an ab initio style training within the preceding year and have already reviewed the private ACS and the commercial ACS. I'm telling you, you're going to get a big kick out of this. It's not going to be that difficult. It's just a little bit of reading to kind of get acquainted with it. Let me show you how this works. So first off, first page, FAA-S, which is standards and Airman Certification Standards, and 9. So the -9 is going to be the Instructor ACS. Again, it says Instructor and ACS. It doesn't say Flight Instructor. It just says Instructor ACS. Date be determined. Hopefully it'll be June of 2021 and not June of 2020, but should definitely help you. Let's pan on through here. Standard acknowledgments. This is standard ACS stuff. The forward is standard. The revision history, we don't care about it. It hasn't came out yet. It's already a year past due anyway. It was supposed to come out in 2019. Here's a table of contents. And you know what I'd like for you to be able to do is open up your PTS. Go ahead and hit the pause button after I finish talking. But open up your PTS and go alongside of it and see what's changed. I'll try to give you a good bulk of the matter, but I'm not going to go through every single item. And the reason for why? Because this is a draft. I don't actually know if this is going to be the final thing, but you'll have enough to actually get you where you need to go and on the right track. So that way, if your check ride is the day after the ACS comes out or the day the ACS comes out, well, you'll be prepared. So let's look on down here. We have this thing where it's the introduction and everything. And then we have the concept of the ACS, using the ACS, organization, and risk management for the instructor. Now, the top three things are pretty normal, but risk management for the instructor is a new thing. We'll take a look at that. And then notice that they have it broken down into sections, section 1, section 2, 3, and so on. And that is another neat concept too. You can see here, this kind of looks like some PTS material here, but then as we get down, there's actually a, beyond that, those items there, you can actually see that we actually have a section 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, and so on. And again, here's where those other flight instructor things come in, okay? So a little bit different, but not that much. And I think the biggest change up here, or thing that you should be most aware of, is that look at where the FOIs are. So section 1, it gives you the FOIs, and then down here it says I, Fundamentals of Instruction. So notice it only has one page there of it. And so they may do something different here, but I'm going to show you what's a little bit different about that, and it won't come into effect until we get to this item, which is the Evaluators Practical Test Checklist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that item first, which is on page 14. Let's see if I can go directly there. Nope, it won't let me go right there. So I'm just going to scroll down. Again, everything you see in the introduction is standard ACS stuff. So if you've seen the ACS for instrument, for private, for commercial, it's the same. So not anything different there. Let's continue to go down to, here's some notes on here because I have this in a digital form. So you know what? Let's stop right here before I get to page 14 and just show you what I've highlighted here. The big difference is that in this new ACS, the term instructional knowledge has changed since what it was in the PTS. The PTS used to say that instructional knowledge is to being able to use all the references to give the answer. And here it actually says that the definition of instructional knowledge is the applicant demonstrates instructional knowledge by describing and explaining instructional knowledge, meaning the instructor applicant can effectively present the what, how, and why involved with the task elements. So that is something that is very different. So if you take the ACS ride, please know the definition for instructional knowledge has changed. And then I just on my own, just out of my own mind, I wrote these sentences down here. So as an instructor, I can kind of think about the what, the how, and the why. So what do we need to know? How am I going to teach it? And why do you need to know it? Okay, so I don't like the what, how, why order. I like the why, what, how order if I'm going to be an instructor. So I don't know. It's up to you. That's just me looking at it and studying it so far. Entirely up to you. Just wrote that down there. Hopefully you can get a big kick out of that. So here we are here with the fundamentals of instruction, but I told you I want to fast forward to page 14. Let's go down to page 14, and I want you to see something here. It's pretty unique. And then we'll come back up there. So here's the Evaluators Practical Test Checklist. One of the things is the FAA last cycle, so June of 2019, removed Evaluators checklist from the ACS. You can't find them anymore. This one still has it. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but what I can tell you is this. If you look at a traditional ACS, you know that it says the examiner may select so many tasks. And with the current PTS, it says that examiner shall select in the FOIs one task in addition to the mandatory task, which is E, and one other task. Notice here that in the new ACS, it says the evaluator must select task E and F and one other task. And this is something that was probably very well seen, because if you look down here, you can actually see that it has the standard instructor responsibilities and professional characteristics, but it also has risk management and ADM, which is the backbone of the ACS. That really wasn't anything that was too far off the beaten path. We knew that was coming. So kind of got your E and your F and one other task. Probably the one thing I thought was a little bit strange was that they flipped around A and B. So in the PTS, it's human behavior and effective communication is actually first, followed by the learning process, followed by the teaching process, and then followed by assessment and critique, and then instruct responsibilities, the risk management stuff. And at some point it talks about teaching in the air or something. I can't remember. I don't have them side by side, but you get the point if you're looking at your PTS. Technical subject areas, not that bad. We will get to those in a minute. Let's go back up to the FOIs and look and see how they're going to be testing on the FOIs. You know, right now with the PTS, you really have to do a lot of memorizing and a lot of things because you have to go over literally everything. But you know, with the ACS, you don't have to go over everything. You only have to go over just a little bit of stuff. We have to take one thing from the knowledge. You have to take one thing from risk management and all of the skills. So normally you would have to go over every bit of this stuff on a PTS check ride, but not in this check ride. The examiner may only ask you to pick out one of these things. And if you look down here at the skills, it says, explain and apply educational theories to ground and flight instruction scenarios specified by the evaluator. And that means that they can come up here and choose some of these things. They give you a scenario and you say it and boom. Man, how quickly we can go through this check ride now. This check ride is probably going to ended up being, after about a year of doing these rides across the nation, this is probably going to be a tops 3-hour oral. And that could be on the worst side of things because we're not having to test on so much information anymore because the scenario is an ever-changing thing. And again, you reap the benefits of that. Now, you have to study everything just like you did in the PTS, but you're going to reap the benefits because you don't have to do as much, okay? Again, the risk side of things, you just read that risk. I'm not going to read them to you. You can read it. I'm actually going to drop a copy of this right down here in the comments, and you can look at this copy of the draft yourself. You're welcome. And if we go down here, there's task B and so on and so on. Let's get down into the technical subject areas and see what's changed. On the way down to the technical subject areas, I'm going to stop briefly again. Notice in section 2, they threw in everything for the ground instructor. So if you'd like to be a ground instructor, if you're watching one of these videos and you're just a commercial pilot, or even if you are a private pilot and you want to be a ground instructor, you don't even have to be a pilot to be a ground instructor. You can be a BGI and not even hold a pilot certificate. So the bottom line is, if you want to be a ground instructor, this is where you come now to meet the standards for being a ground instructor. And there's some good stuff to go in there. Now let's see if we can take a look at the TSA, technical subject areas, okay? Not stuff here, just completion standards for flight instructor. Not anything you need to be worried about because that's probably going to change. Again, the evaluator's practical test checklist. So here is a good thing if you want to know like what task you're going to be tested on, like technical subject areas. It used to be in the PTS, Bravo, Mike, and one other task. In the new ACS, it's Charlie, Delta, and one other task, with the Charlie and Delta being endorsements and runway incursions, just like it was in the PTS. I'm not going to go through every one of these because you're more than welcome to go through and read all of these lines like that. I don't need to read them to you. I'm providing that to you so that way you can do it and get smarter every day by yourself. And if we go down here, there's a big gap after emergency, and that's because they have a big gaping gap here where a multi-engine is, because at the time I got this, they haven't wrote this. And then post-flight procedures, which only one thing applies to you there, which is the after landing. Now, with the technical subject areas, there was a little bit of change there. They've broken down some areas. So they rearranged the order. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I can't see where it's a good or a bad thing, but it more closely mimics, of course, the ACS for private and commercial. Now, here's where I told you a minute ago how your exam could be incredibly easy if you're familiar with the ACS for private and commercial. And how is that? Notice how short this is here. This is incredibly short. And they've done some ingenious things. If they follow through with what they're doing, it's ingenious. It really is. They did a really good job. If they follow through with it. The references here tell everything. And the good thing about it is that it'll either be right out of the references or right out of the private or commercial ACS. So if you're looking at a task in the Flight Instructor ACS and you're not familiar with the private and commercial ACS, it's going to be a huge issue. You're going to have to get familiar with both the ACS for private and commercial. However, if you're familiar with those, this is going to be a cakewalk. And then the references. So if I were to prepare myself to do principles of flight, I want to make sure that I understand the Airplane Flying Handbook and the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. I want to make sure I understand those two references. And as you can see right here, the evaluator must select task C and D and at least one other task from Area of Operation 2, technical subject areas. So on this one, you simply just need to be familiar with these references here and then just pick one of those. Unlike on the PTS, we have to pick all of them. Okay, so I think this is a wonderful way to test, and it's going to make for a very short check ride as long as the scenario that examiner has is a good scenario and their plan of action is a good plan of action. This is probably going to be one of the most interesting check rides you ever take as a pilot. It's going to be it should be fun. It really should be. Probably you're not grasping what I'm saying there. If you're like, well, how can it be fun? Well, because you already know all this stuff. You already know everything from private and commercial. Everything from that is in here. All you have to do is know how to teach it. So I think this, like I said, it should be a fun check ride because you already know all this stuff. I'm going to go down here and show you another one that is not reference oriented, where it actually changes. So you can keep going down through here if you want to and take your time and look at all this stuff. But we're going to keep going down and looking at the references here for each one of these. And until I find one that is exactly what I want to show you. Here we go. So human factors. So look how this looks weird. Doesn't that look weird? And this actually may be the final look of exactly what this may be. And the reason for is because if you go up here and look at the notes, look at what the note says. For each of the following tasks, E through O, included in the technical subject areas, refer to the descriptions contained in the private or commercial ACS document as indicated. Isn't that cool? They don't have to go through and re-put everything in here because you already know what you've been tested to in the past. You've already studied the private. You've already studied the commercial. Isn't that cool? So all you got to do is do the references, and if there's no references, then you just reference the ACS, which also has the references. But if you know the ACS for private and commercial, how many times am I going to say that? I guess I'm just trying to beat it into your head so that way you don't freak out that they're changing the standards on you. This is going to be a pretty cool thing. I'm pretty excited about it. I can't wait to start testing underneath this new way. Here we go again, private and commercial right there. I mean, that's exactly what we're looking at. Navigation and flight planning, nothing different than what you've ever done. It's just that now you got to teach it and not just talk about it. And let's go around down here. Let's go ahead and bypass the technical subject areas. Let's get into the next one because I don't want to keep it too long on this because I know you're on bated breath to print this thing out and look at it or bring it up on your iPad and look at it. Look at that. It's a lot of technical subject areas. Oh yeah, back in technical subject areas, they did split some things up. They split up the high altitude between the systems and pressurization systems and oxygen requirements. So that's another thing too that's kind of like a change that was normally in just one area in the PTS. So Area of Operation 3, pilot qualifications. Here you can actually see that it at least one of the tasks. And so to answer everything in here, you just got to be familiar with all of that, everything that's in this little area right here. And that would get you every bit of the information that it's asking for there. Easy stuff, I think, because they really do a good job of telling you, if you want to know what we're going to ask you, go to these references. That's what we're going to ask you. Everything from that is game. And I say ask you, you know I meant ask you to teach is what I'm actually talking about. So that's Area of Operation 3. And again, here's where this comes directly from the commercial. So here, what's the difference between this and the other one we've seen? It doesn't ask for it in the private and only asks for it in the commercial. So it doesn't want you to go to the private. It only wants you to go to the commercial, and then you're done. All right, so that's area of operation 3. Let's go to area of operation 4. Nothing's changed about that. This is that lesson that you have to teach in the oral about a maneuver that you're going to do. Nothing's changed there. They did combine a little bit about the common errors and whatnot. So right now you just have 3 items you really need to concentrate on. Purpose of the maneuver, the elements of the maneuver, and the common errors, and the desired outcome, which really wasn't in the PTS. And then the applicant demonstrates the ability to teach and manage the risk arising from the selected maneuver task. So you must be familiar with the risk associated with it. It's pretty simple because once you go to the commercial or the private ACS, all the risk items are located within the task box under risk management. You don't have to do any work. It's written out for you. It's like, oh, how easy could we get? And I really do hope that after I go over this with you, that you will see that it's not that bad. It's actually pretty easy. And this keeps going down through all the way. And especially when you get to the maneuvers, I'm going to scroll down to the maneuvers. We can pick out any maneuvers here. Big money, no whammies, stop. All right, fundamentals of flight. The evaluator must select at least one task, and you can see here that there is that, and there is the reference, and you are held to the commercial pilot standards, and there's what you need to know. Isn't this wonderful? I think it's really going to help you be on top of the game, especially if they bring this out in June. I'm going to go ahead and move right on down past this, and we're going to go down to close to the bottom, and I want you to look what's on the down here, these red things. I'm not sure if this red writing is going to actually going to wind up in the ACS, but they're really trying to tell you that this new part. So normally they've had like task, reference, objective, knowledge, risk management skills. But they threw this little red thing in here, which is foundational ACS, is saying that if you want to know where this came from, that's where you go to. So again, I think it's pretty cool, and I hope that they keep some of this red stuff in here. It looks like it's stuff that needs to be addressed in the meeting, but maybe not. Maybe they'll just actually do some other knowledge codes here. Maybe this will actually be the AIA.XI.B.K1 right there in this blank there. So hopefully that's probably what that's going to be. All right, hopefully I'm not going too fast for you, and I'm just going to scroll right on down here pretty much to the very end and kind of look and see what we have at the very end. Then we can go ahead and wrap this on up. So there's the multi-engine stuff that hasn't been filled out yet. Post-flight procedures, and now we're at the end. So here it is, instrument airplane, and to be developed and published in conjunction with the Flight Instructor ACS. So again, it says to me that this is going to be something that probably comes out around the same time. They're just going to have some type of matrix that would tell you how to test for it. And we go down here, and there's one for rotorcraft, and we go down here, and there's the one for glider, and we go down here, and there's the one for sport pilot. And that's kind of weird, because normally we'd have the sport pilot CFI booklet different than a publication different from the rest of the world, the regular flight instructors. This one, they're actually blending it in to this, which is pretty good. So I think this is going to be a good document. It's going to be a holistic document for everyone to use. I think if you cut the airplane stuff out, it's only going to be a couple of pages. By a couple of pages, I probably mean 20 to 25 pages maybe. Nothing to see here in this appendix table of contents except for the knowledge test. Of course, this looks different from what you'd seen, of course, because it covers flight instructor stuff and instructor stuff. Nothing down here remotely different from what you've normally seen. Knowledge test procedures and tips. Cheating. This is everything that is combined in the other one. So if I don't think there is. I look down through here, and I don't think there's any other things that you need to be worried about at all, period. possible outcomes, discontinuances. Every one of the ACS have this one, appointment with the examiner. So make sure when you go to your check ride, you have every bit of the stuff with you in the room. That will help you as well. Hopefully you would not be needing your 8060-5, which is a NOD, but it's on the list. And the rest of this stuff is pretty much dealing with the standard ACS stuff. So I'm not going to scroll all the way down to the end because it's just safety of flight and then stuff about simulators. So I'm hoping that you got some good knowledge about what we're talking about in this document, because this new ACS stuff is the wave of the future. It's 10 times easier than doing a practical test standards test, PTS test. God, man, there's so many acronyms in aviation. So I think if you get a head start on this, you're going to be wonderfully prepared for your check ride. And if you have any questions, please post them down below. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have for me. This will be across my Patreon platform as well as my YouTube platform. So please, if you're not a Patreon member, I'd love to see you over there. And for those Patreon members watching, thank you very much. I appreciate you. And anything else I can do, send your, if you got suggestions, send those. I do most of the items that I do for my channel are based off suggestions. So I keep a big running board over here about how to, what things I want to be able to do that my customers send me that says, hey, I'd love to see a video on this. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I've taken up enough of your time. Post your questions down below. I'd love to hear from you. Todd Shellnut with CFI Pro Courses. Bye-bye. Intermission, music, dancing, fireworks.